Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am your boy 12 Kyle. Check this out. On this episode, we are celebrating Hip Hop Week. If you've been hiding under a rock or if you've been off the planet, hip hop was created this particular week by the great DJ Kool Herc. And in honor of hip hop, I said this week we were going to drop an episode doing album reviews, talking about hip hop every day this week. And today is no exception. And as you can see, I got some help with me. I got one of my boys in the building, fellow podcaster, entrepreneur, a guy who's new to the game, but definitely true to the game. My man, Danny Foxworth. Danny, what's good, man?
What is good people? Thank you, 12 Kyle, for having me back on or having me on for the first time. Mm-hmm. Man, this is a dream come true, bro. Seriously.
Stop, man.
Let's rock.
Man, listen. I've been rocking with this dude, and he's been rocking with me. Wow, I don't even know how long. It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
We go back. Both of us from the 843 in South Carolina. Danny's from Moncks Corner, South Carolina. And Danny hosts not one, but two podcasts. And I'm going to tell you, this guy, the one thing that I love about both of his podcasts is in theory, he has not had a podcast for a long period of time, but he is as polished and as dope as you would think that somebody who had been doing it for 5 or 6 years. And I'm not just saying that just because he said, but he is solid. The host of At the Plate. And since we last spoke, man, before we even get into the music, man, how has it been for you just on a personal level? Because I remember either you sent me a tweet or a DM saying, I'm going to start my podcast. And it just seems like literally from overnight, both podcasts have taken off. How has it been for you, jumping into this podcast game?
It's been an awesome experience. There's definitely some growing pains, but you know what? They helped me improve my podcasting. But every week, I look forward to hopping in the booth and hitting the record button and either manning it solo or chopping it up with my guest. And I'm telling you, man, this it took me a while to get into the podcasting thing, but I'm here and I'm really enjoying it.
That's all that matters, man. The fact that you're enjoying it. That's all that matters, because ultimately it's up to you, as far as what you get from it and how long and how far you want to take it. So, man, I mean, like I said, I'm not just blowing smoke, man. And I've been on your podcast At the Plate. We got a chance to talk baseball, man, which is, like I told you before, it's very rare because you were the only person that had me on their podcast to talk baseball. I've talked about every other sport other than baseball everywhere else. But that was a dope time anytime talking about my Yankees. But I brought you on here, man. We're going to talk about a specific album. This album we're going to talk about, it was the debut album from the mighty Mos Def. You guys know Mos Def from the group Black Star. The album was released October 12, 1999. It is called Black on Both Sides. As I was telling Danny, like before we came on, and many of you know, I said this year I wanted to do something a little different and celebrate hip hop as turning 50. And I didn't want to necessarily do, because I do periodically throughout the year, we do album reviews and stuff like that. I wanted to do something where an album wasn't turning 10 years old or 15 years old or 20 years old or 30 years, 35, however. And I wrote down a list of albums. And what's interesting was the albums that I picked, I wanted to do albums that I hadn't touched before and possibly any artists that I hadn't touched before. And when I gave Danny the selection of albums that he could choose from, I had in my mind that he was going to pick this one. And he did. So let's get into it, man. Black on Both Sides, again, October 12th, 1999. Let's go back, man. Do you have a special or first memories about either how you got this album or how it came to you, and just your overall thoughts of you know, like when you first heard it for the first couple of times?
Man, well, I was first familiar with Mos Def through I think it was the first Sound Bomb, and he had a song.
Mm.
He had a song. I think it was called like 2000 Seasons or something like that. And it was that. And then when he was on the Stakes is High album with that song Big Brother Beat, and I'm like, yo, who is this dude, man? He is dope. And then Black Star album comes out, and I was like, yo, that was the hook. That was the hook, line, and sinker right there.
Yeah. Same.
Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of Kweli. I mean, I tolerate him, but man, I couldn't get enough of Mos Def, man. Especially that brown skinned lady, and God, his verse on it was Thieves in the Night. Those were the verses that really made me become a fan of his.
Yeah, and, go ahead.
And then God, Respiration too. Can't leave Respiration out.
Yes.
The picture he painted on his verse.
Crazy. I much like you, man. I'm not. I can't say I'm not a fan. I'm not as big a fan of Kweli. I'm less of a fan now, because some of the way he handles himself on social media. But that's another story for another day.
Understood.
But his emceeing, at least for me, when I heard, much like you, I heard Most the first time on Sound Bombing, and I think I heard him on a couple other mixtapes, maybe a Clue tape before the Black Star album came out. And then when the Black Star album came out, I'm sure like you were kind of like hanging on to every single verse that Mos Def had. And so you look forward to hearing him rhyme, and it was just like he was just taking off as an MC. And I can't even remember getting wind of this album, but I just remember going to the store and actually purchasing it. You know, this is 99, so you probably could have found it online and, you know, illegally downloaded it. But Mos Def was my man at the time, so I was like, I got to go buy this. And I remember going to the I got this at Tower Records in Atlanta, and I just remember a lot of people were there, and I just remember there was a dude standing in front of me, and he had the CD too. He was like, man, I can't wait to hear. He was talking. I wasn't really, you know, I wasn't paying attention at first because I thought he was talking to somebody else. And he was just like, I can't wait to hear this. I can't wait to hear this. And I was like, yeah, me too. And it was that album was special when I heard it. And I knew I had to have a review for it. So when we talk about this album, man, 99 was transformational year. The music that came out in 99 didn't necessarily look and feel like the music did earlier in the 90s. We had the East, we had the West. Well, let me take that back. We had the West first, that was dominant, and then we had the East come back. Unfortunately, we lost Biggie and Pac in the 90s. So we're by the time this album comes in October of 99, we're moving closer and closer to 2000. Where was, maybe not necessarily physically, but where was Danny Foxworth as a fan when it came to hip hop? And, where were you, like your mindset as far as a listener?
It's interesting because it was like there was this big divide between like No Limit and like say Raucous. And what's interesting is I'm a big fan of both. It was nothing for me to listen to Skullduggery and then turn right around and listen to Company Flow. I remember I was at the time, I was like back in 98. I think I was a senior in high school, and I had a job washing cars at Hoover Chrysler Dodge. And it was me and two other people, and it's like every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we listen to one album from beginning to end, and then just like binge listen to that album. And then Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, it would be another album. So like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we played the Mystical Unpredictable album. Then Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, we played Jay-Z in My Lifetime Volume 1. Just like polar opposites, but I mean, for me, as far as listening to hip hop, I listen to pretty much everything.
No doubt, no doubt. So, what was that like? I mean, that's a pretty wide range from going from somebody like you said, like Company Flow or Raucous, to No Limit, because No Limit at that particular time, the tank was rolling. Yeah. I mean, like they literally were putting out music. What, at least every 2 weeks, maybe?
For sure. And like I would have the album covers, like the advertisements for like the upcoming albums. I had them plastered on my wall. I mean, I was fully invested. Like every week I was going to Manifest Discs and Tapes in Charleston, South Carolina.
Shout out to Manifest, man.
What you know about Manifest?
Man, come on, man. We had a Manifest in Florence. We had one. Are you serious? Yeah, there was a Manifest in Florence at the Magnolia Mall. And then if I didn't go to Magnolia Mall in my hometown of Florence, South Carolina, I would go to Manifest in Columbia. And that's where that's where I would get music from when I was in college. I mean, most of the time we had a record store in Orangeburg where I went to South Carolina State, and I would get most of my music from there. But like, let's say if I was in Columbia, if I just made a road trip to Columbia, which is only 30 miles from Orangeburg, I always had to stop by Manifest, because Manifest had something. Manifest, you could get stuff that you couldn't necessarily get in the record stores in the mall and stuff. So
yeah, and they had local artists too, which was always a big plus for me.
Yes, they heavily promoted local artists. If you had any local artists that were performing in the area, you could find out about it there as well. So yeah, you just took me back with Manifest. Man, I ain't thought about Manifest in about 5 or 6 years. When it comes to this album, one of the things I think is that doesn't really get talked about a lot, but there was some very, very solid production on this album. What did you think about the production?
I love the production. The production was dope, but it was also incredibly varied. I mean, like it's like one song's production does not sound like the next song. And that was a treat to me. Just listening to that, I'm like, man, boy, he threw me for a loop there.
Right.
Man, he threw me for a loop here. Whoa, what? I didn't expect him to go down this road.
And Indeed to 88 Keys, Premier, Ayatollah, D. Prosper, Ali Shaheed Muhammad from A Tribe Called Quest, Psycho, LES, DJ Etch and Sketch, David Kennedy, just to name a few. He had some, while they might not have been quote unquote household names, he had some bangers on here.
He did.
And the album runtime is 71 minutes, so a little over an hour, which would be by today's standards a album that was way too long. But I didn't. It's funny, man, because even when I listen to this album to this day, it doesn't feel like a long album. Does it feel like that to you?
It doesn't.
Now, when you play it, do you skip it around, or you just play it all the way through?
I play it all the way through.
Okay.
I may skip one song.
Okay, and we'll get to that in just a second. Again, this was the debut album for Mos Def, debut solo album for Mos Def. And again, I just remember hearing it for the first time after purchasing it, and I was very surprised. Not that I didn't think he could do it, but just the way the album flowed, just his overall temperament throughout the album, his subject matter, which we'll talk about in just a second, was very, very key, I think. I think one of the things that stood out to me, just on a personal note, was that if you follow hip hop, where hip hop was going, hip hop at that particular time, a lot of it was shiny suits. It was flossy. It was about how much money you had. And we had come from, the gangster rap, if you will, in the early and mid 90s. And then so here it is. You have this album, this collection of songs, Mos Def, and it's none of that. You know what I'm saying?
None. Yeah.
He gave it to you raw, and he gave you different elements of hip hop in this album. What did you take from it overall, as far as your your thoughts on the album?
I'm going to keep it real with you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Black on Both Sides is my favorite rap album ever.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, no wonder you picked it.
Yeah. Yeah. That, oh man, I can't get enough of that album, bro.
Wow. Favorite hip hop album of all time. Now, notice, folks, he said his favorite. He didn't say the best.
Not best.
He didn't say it was the greatest album of all time. He said his favorite. Okay.
Without a doubt.
Wow. That's what's up. And now that I did not expect, but that is that is a great place for us to start there. This album was very critically acclaimed. Again, when I was particularly when we talk album reviews, I never talk about how much it sold. Even to this day, I don't know how much it sold. I think it probably sold. I think it went gold. I think eventually.
I believe so.
Okay, but got 4.5 mics in the source, and it was a very, very complete album from top to bottom, and it was something that I think, just for me and my friends, it felt very refreshing. I ain't gonna lie, because a lot of us, Danny, and I'm pretty sure you probably went through the same thing, probably knew people who were getting a little tired of where rap was and hip hop was, with the commercialism on one side and the gangsterism on another side. And it was just, everybody was trying to look the same, and it wasn't about being original anymore. And this album, at least to me, was just refreshing. So how does, even before we get into the track listing and go through these tracks, how does this album become Danny Foxworth's favorite hip hop album of all time?
Because he rapped about stuff that is in like particular subject matter that I hadn't heard anybody else rap about.
Mm-hmm.
The man rapped about water. I mean, who else do you know is rapping about water? Like the use, like how it's beneficial and how people take it for granted. Water.
Mm-hmm. Water. And making it sound dope and not preachy.
Yeah. Just real matter of fact about it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So let's get into it, man. Track 1, Fear Not of Man. I think this is a very good opening track. What did you take from this one?
I love it. He was just laying the groundwork laid the groundwork for the album and got into it. Just had a monologue about how hip hop is like, what hip hop is supposed to be like. He's like, if we're smoked, whatever's going on in hip hop is whatever's going on with us. He said, if we're smoked out, hip hop's gonna be smoked out. If we're doing all right, hip hop's gonna be doing all right. He said, hip hop is not some. He's like, hip hop is not some giant that comes down from the mountaintop to visit the village people. I was like, he was getting into it, man.
I love that part too.
Yeah.
I love that part. And that, like you said, that monologue, I think is very key. And it's something that honestly we probably didn't talk about as much as we probably should have. But he's right.
Yeah.
Wherever we are, that's where hip hop is gonna be. If we're not focused, hip hop ain't gonna be focused. If we're, focused on the wrong things, hip hop is gonna be focused on the wrong things. We're smoked out. If we're rapping about drugs and, that's where hip hop is going to be. So I think it was very prophetic, if you will, as far as like where we were and more importantly, where we were going. Then we get into track 2, hip hop.
Oh, man.
Talk to me about this one.
Whoo. Speech is my hammer, bang the world into space and I let it fall. Man, my restlessness is my nemesis. It's hard to really chill and sit still. Committed a page, I'll write a rhyme. Sometimes I won't finish for days. That's how you start an album.
Yes.
I mean, he got right to it.
Right to it. When he said, I'll write a rhyme, it may not finish it for days. That's even the artist and most people can relate to that, I love that. I mean, and I just, that song particular reminds me of like my first couple of listens. And then I remember hearing this song and I was like, oh, we on this? I was like, oh, and that's when I kind of, in my mind, I told myself, he's got something here. You know, he's on to something and he's making it happen. Then we get to track 3, produced by 88 Keys, called Love. What'd you think about this one?
Love it, man. Real mellow. And he rides the beat so well, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, starts the song off with the Rakim line. I'll start to think, and then I sink into the paper like I was ink. When I'm writing, I'm trapped in between the lines. I escape. When I finish my rhyme. I was like, this guy, man.
Yeah.
And that lineage, man.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really appreciated about it, because it lets you know, like, hey, he's a student of the game, you know. I think, and we didn't really see that. And not only just being a student of the game, but he also, in that line, he's paying homage to, you know, Rakim, somebody who came before him. And that wasn't something that we saw a lot in hip hop at that particular time. So love that joint. Then we get to track 4, the lead single, Miss Fat Booty. Talk to me about this one, Danny.
So good. And I mean, because some of the what he was rapping about, I could relate to. Seeing a chick in the club, you know, particularly the ass so fat that you could see it from the front.
Come on, man,
bro. Oh man, took me back to them days when I used to be in the end zone and in the Diplomat back home back in North Charleston, and seeing this chick at the bar, and just same. And funny enough, her name was also Sharice.
Say word.
Yeah, I was like, man, this is hitting a little too close to home.
You got a story for us or something?
It's not much of a story. She turned me down.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I approached her, you know, she was looking too good, and she was like, no, thank you.
Wow.
And she left and danced with her girls. I'm like, all right, charge it to the game.
She gonna see this podcast and be mad. She be like, man, I knew I should have talked to that dude. Look at him now. He's got 2 podcasts and he's doing his thing.
Yeah, stunting on him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that record, man. And him talking about the hurt that she was putting him through. You know, and then he comes to the club and sees her doing lay me down, lick me up with another chick, and I was like, oh, so this is how it ends.
Yeah, okay. I didn't foresee that ending.
Me either.
Yeah, it's the thing I always say on this podcast, man, and I know you've heard me say this before, very relatable content. We've all seen, there's not any guy listening to this episode that has not seen that one chick in the club and she's bad and you try to talk to her and for whatever reason it doesn't pop off, you know, and then maybe later you cross paths or whatever like that. But it, you know, at least for a short period of time and throughout the story, you know, it worked for most, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, it didn't end well for him. But I think one of the things that I took away, and that I always take away from this, is that he goes back because you and I grew up in an era where you had to be able to tell stories with your rhymes. You know, it wasn't just about, you know, spitting 1,000 bars, but like you had your story rhymes help define you as an MC. You know, you show me a lineup of the dope or people that we would consider to be the dopest MCs ever, and I'll say, hey, they got to have a story rhyme. They got to have some dope story rhymes at some point, you know, in their discography. And I really enjoyed this one because you know, Mos he put it out there, man. He put it out there.
He did.
And I think this is a dope lead single. Then we get to track 5, Speed Law. What you got for track 5, Speed Law?
I like that one too. Had a nice tempo to it. And the fact that he mentioned Dale, he might be the first rapper to ever mention Dale Earnhardt in a song. permanent like tattoos and birthmarks, third-degree burn marks, driving on tracks like Dale Earnhardt. I was like, hold on now.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else, at least up to that point, had mentioned Dale Earnhardt before.
Yeah, but I love that record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same here. That one fits well, I think, on the album. Then we get to track 6, his first feature, "Do It Now" with the great Busta Rhymes. What'd you think about that one, man?
This is the one I skip.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Well, tell me why you skip it.
Man, just I don't know, man. It's like I don't know what it is about Busta. It's like I go back and listen to his stuff. I am a Bus fan, but I got to take him in small doses nowadays. Gotcha. It's like he just
makes sense.
Yeah, just like real gruff, real aggressive, and he don't be saying shit sometimes, man. And it was like it bothers me, and it really shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But in this instance, it does.
You know what's funny that you say that, because my boy Eclectic, shout out to E, he says the same thing about Bus. He's like, I can't, like, and because we were talking, I think we were talking off air after we finished recording one time.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me about, I want to say he asked me about if I purchased a Busta Rhymes album. No, you know what? We were talking about Busta's discography. Mm-hmm. And he said something about, like, something to the effect of he loved, The Coming. And he said something to the effect of, like, I haven't listened to his discography in its entirety since The Coming. Like, that was the last album that he was in on Bus. And that was like, The Coming was what, his second album? Was it first?
That was his first album.
First album, okay, yeah. So anyway, I told him that I think I can't remember the name of the album that I bought, but the last Busta Rhymes album I bought was the one with the red and black cover. I can never remember the name of the damn
Anarchy.
Album. There you go.
Because that was the last one I bought.
And I love that album. But like you said, with Bus, particularly that particular time, yeah, you had to take him in doses. Now that you ain't gonna be riding to church to listen to Busta Rhymes, So, but I like this song, man.
Okay.
I like the back and forth between him and Bus. And it's interesting because we talked about this on a lot of podcasts and stuff, that even in the albums that we love, there can be a song or songs that we don't like, that we skip.
Yeah,
it happens.
He's like that.
Yeah, it's very few albums that you could probably, I don't even want to use the word perfect, and I definitely don't want to use the word classic, but let's say the creme de la creme of albums, there's some songs that you may or may not want to hear. Like we Eclectic and I talked about It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. Mm-hmm. And he don't like the last track. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. And
that was a Party for Your Right to Fight.
Yeah.
I get it.
And see,
I skipped that one too.
But my point to him was that, one, the album came out in '88. I didn't have CDs in '88. I had the tape. Yeah. So guess what? It's the last song on the tape. I might as well listen to it. You see what I'm saying? So
ride it out.
I kind of landed on that by default. But now his thing was, well, now when I get to that song, I'm fast forwarding to the end of the tape. I was like, oh, well, okay, I get it. But it's not necessarily a popular song. But it's interesting. I did not think when you said that this is your favorite, I didn't think if there was a song that you skip, I didn't think it'd be that one. Then we get to track 7, Got. Talk to me about Got.
Cautionary tale.
Man, listen, another story rhyme.
At the gambling spot and your hand is mad hot. God, this is how you get, bro.
Mm-hmm. He was dropping gems
to this day. I mean, people just that hubris, man. People thinking, I've got all this money and this jewels, and I can just post up wherever and nothing's gonna happen to me. That's not how it works.
It don't work like that. He said,
"See, I like to have nice."
Yep. Go ahead.
So I like to have nice things, just like you. But I'm from Brooklyn. Certain shit you just don't do, like high posting when you're all alone, or high posting when you're far from home.
Yes. Yeah, he laid down the rules basically for the do's and don'ts. He said the harder you flash, harder you get flashed on.
Flashed on. Yep.
Very, very much a cautionary tale. You know, it's funny, man. People don't listen to that. And I think that was very key for him to put that on the album because, you know, again, to your point, what you mentioned earlier, he's rapping about stuff that you don't normally hear on an album. I mean, he devotes an entire song to, you know, watching yourself and not getting robbed.
Yep.
Because the streets is hungry and the streets always gonna be hungry. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Then we get to track 8, another single. Umi Says. What you got on this one, man?
Dog, I play this record every morning when I wake up.
Really?
Literally every morning when I wake up, man.
Wow.
Yeah, I get up, I play this song, drink my water, do my stretches, and I'm good. I'm set for the rest of the day.
Wow, that's what's up. Yeah, this one right here, Danny, never gets old for me. Never gets old. You know, this what I call vintage Mos Def. And it's one of those songs that it's just a feel good song. Like it, and I think it's always good, particularly in hip hop, particularly when we hear and see so much of what we see on a day-to-day basis. It's good to have that one song or two that you can put on and it can change your mood, you know, and this, you're not going, there's no way you can listen to the song and not tap your feet or bob your head or sing along for that matter. So
100%.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Still love it to this day. Then we get to track 9, which you talked about a little earlier. New World Water, man. Talk to me about that one.
Man, New World Water make the top rise high. Come inland and make the house go by. Just, oh man, there's so many things that water does that we really take water for granted.
We really do.
I mean,
it's something that like you think about it, but I never really thought about it until I heard this song. Not in detail, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you can take what he said. That's like it don't. I can't even remember what he said. Like, thing is about to get real wild on the app. You be buying Evian just to take a fucking bath. Used to say he used to have minerals and zinc in it. Now they say it got lead and zinc in it. Fluorocarbons and monoxide. Got the fish looking cockeyed. I mean, golly, boy, he was just that was a thorough song about water, which I've never heard another rapper ever do.
I don't think I've heard anybody rap more than 4 bars about water.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, if they're out there, maybe point them to me, but none come to mind immediately for me. Then we get to track 10, Rock and Roll. This was a little different. What would you think about this one?
I like this one. It was a welcome departure. Like he started off with the slow. You know, they sing songs for inspiration. They sing songs for relaxation. They sing songs to take their mind up off that fucked up situation.
Yep.
I mean, just it's like really no structure to it. He's just going with the flow, singing along with it. And then he started getting into the white rock and roll artists' asses. Like, you didn't start this.
Right.
You may dig on the Rolling Stones, but they ain't come up with that shit on their own.
Nope.
I was like, okay, this is where we going. All right, let's go. Let's take a ride.
I loved it, man. I think I remember hearing it for the first time. I was like, you know, like you're doing something, and then you're like, wait a minute, damn, where did this come from? Like, because he gets into it, and you know, as he gets deeper and deeper into the song, then you kind of catch it all, and you're like, oh, okay, now I see how he got to this point. Yeah, I love this joint, man. I love this joint. And again, I think it's funny because I remember having this conversation with one of my boys back in the day, and he made a good point. He said, look, if Mos Def was on Def Jam, he's like, this record doesn't make this album. This particular song don't make this album. It's like, no. It's like, because Def Jam had a formula, and you had to stick to that formula. You got to have 100%. Your club records. You got to have your street records. You got to have for the ladies, you got to have the Dead Homies record. You got to have, you know, unless you hold for somebody like that, you can't necessarily deviate too far off that path.
Right.
But yeah, man, I love that joint. Then we get to track 11, where his counterpart, his partner in crime, Talib Kweli, shows up on Know That. What did you think about this one?
I dug it.
Mm-hmm.
I dug it. No, Kweli notwithstanding.
Right.
You know, I wasn't mad at what Kweli was spitting.
Mm-hmm.
And they always have they just generally they have a good rapport, good chemistry. So I didn't have any problems with this record.
Yeah, I thought it was solid. It wasn't that I didn't like it. It wasn't skippable, but I thought it was solid. I thought it was real solid, and it was good because we got a chance to see Kweli, and I think there were a lot of fans of Mos Def that probably would have been upset if he had done this album and Kweli didn't show up on at least one track. So they gave the people what they wanted. So I wasn't mad at that. Then we get to track 12, Climb, featuring the lovely Vinia Mojica. What did you think about Climb?
Vinia Mojica automatically gets a pass from me. Again, just vibing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no real rhyme or reason to it. They just vibing.
Right.
People climb into the night like cool world. Like, I'm all in. All in.
I will say this. As much as I love Vinia Mojica, this is the skip for me.
Okay.
I have to be in the mood for it. If I'm in the mood, I'll listen. If I'm not in the mood, I'm like, skip. But
I'm mad at that.
But it's a decent song. It's a decent song. I think I think over a period of time, it grew on me because at one point in time, Danny, it was just a straight skip. All like it was just I don't hear that.
Oh,
but over a period of time, it resonated more and more with me. So I can dig it. But it just depends on how I feel. If it's a Saturday, I'm in the car and it's on, I might listen. If I'm in the house cleaning up, I might not. You know what I'm saying? It just depends. Mm-hmm. Track 13, Brooklyn. Not Tyler. Mos Def talks about the place where he's from, man. What did you think about this one?
I love this record, man. Same. I love this record. I'm a trilogy. Like the beat switches 3 different times. Man, it's like it goes from one beat and then it goes to the oh God, I can't even remember the sample that we live in Brooklyn, baby.
Yeah. Oh, I know exactly where that's from too. I'm gonna think of it probably by the time we finish recording.
And then the third beat, he switches to Who Shot You? I was like, whoa, Brooklyn, the habitat, the place where they happen at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. The one thing that I wish would have happened with this album, I wish this would have been a single with a video.
Yeah.
I think it would have been dope. And I don't necessarily know why they did or didn't. But I would have loved for it to happen. But yeah, that's one of my favorite tracks on the album. And like you said, from the beat switching, and the beat switches 2 or 3 times. And honestly, at that particular time in hip hop, that didn't happen a lot. Of course, it happens a lot now, but you didn't get that a lot. So, they did their thing on that one. Then track 14, you just mentioned a little bit earlier, Habitat. What do you think about this one?
We all got to have the place that we come from. This place that we come from is called home. I love this record. We set out on our travels and we do the best we can. We walk this great big earth where we roam.
Yeah, man.
I love it, man.
That's the joint. I like this one because it just really shows like Mos Def wasn't afraid to try anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, at that particular time, you had people like Andre 3000 that was very experimental. I mean, obviously Q-Tip has always been very experimental in the studio, but I like this, man. I really like this because, most can carry a tune. I'm not gonna say he can sing, but he can carry a tune, and he doesn't come off as overdoing it or over trying or corny for that matter when he does sing or whatever like that. And he's not off key. He knows what he's doing. Very, very talented brother, man. I'm with you, man. I like this joint. Then track 15, featuring the aforementioned Q-Tip, Mr. Nigga. Talk to me about Mr. Nigga.
I love this record, man. And again, this stuff that not a whole lot of rappers I hear talk about, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like just going into an establishment, and you know the waiters looking you up and down, the host and hostess, they looking you up and down like, why are you here? You're not supposed to be here. Like that song, it does it for me.
Yeah, I love it. I love the subject matter of, you know, and the perspective from which he's coming from. You know, like he talks about being in first class and they thinking he in the wrong seat. Then the ladies, oh, can you sign my kid's autograph? You know, and they're like, and he's thinking to himself, like, you don't even know who I am.
Right.
You know, but a little while ago,
he's like, if I know you would have come, if I knew you would have come, I would have bought you a cake. Should have just got some shoe polish and painted my face.
Yeah, man. I love that joint, man. It is you know, it speaks to us on a different level because it makes you think also of, you know, sometimes what they go through. And I'm pretty sure he wrote that and spoke that from personal experience. But yeah, man, I mean, like, that's got to be tough when you're thinking, okay, well, hey, I'm this music artist. I've made it to this level, got myself out the hood, and I'm doing well for myself and well for my business, what have you. And I'm doing all these great things. I'm loved by these people. And this is what you see.
Yep.
You think you see Mr. Nigga, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is probably my second favorite song on the album. Then we get to track 16, Mathematics, produced by the world famous DJ Premier. Man, what you got on this?
1 for Charlie Hustle, 2 for Steady Rock, 3 for the forthcoming Live Future Shock. It's 5 dimensions, 6 senses, 7 firmaments of heaven to hell, 8 million stories to tell. Golly, man.
Bars.
I don't have any like extra superlatives for this record, man. It's just banger.
I tweeted this out the other day because I was listening to it. Young Bloods can't spell, but they can rock you in PlayStation.
Yeah.
This is my favorite track on the album, man. I love it. I mean, Premier obviously laced him with a crazy beat.
Yes, he did.
But man, listen, there's so much truth in just about everything that he's saying in this. And it's also a cautionary tale, like, look, he's looking down the road and, you know, kind of giving you some gems to chew on. And I think one of the things that was also key is that, you know, much like a lot of other really good MCs in that era and the era before, I think Mos Def does a really good job of telling you what you need to hear, but not coming off as preachy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I got 16 to 32 bars to rock it, but only 15% of profits ever see my pocket. Like 69 billion in the last 20 years was spent on national defense, but folks still live in fear.
Man, that's a bar in and of itself.
Yeah.
Still live in fear. Oh my God.
Yeah, I got nothing bad to say about that record.
That song, and I want to say, I'm gonna go out on a limb because I can't verify it. I'm not gonna look it up. So if y'all need to check me. I think that made the hip hop quotable in the source. I'm almost certain that okay.
It did.
I was about to say, because you could really pick a verse.
Yeah, you really
could pick a verse and it wouldn't matter. I mean, and then the album ends with May December, which I love. It's no rapping on it, but it's just an instrumental, but it's a vibe. Yeah, and it's a hell of a way to close out an album. Yeah, man. Hell of a way to close out an album. As I mentioned, 71 minutes, so a little over an hour. But just an incredible album from top to bottom. You already said it's your favorite album. What do you get? What do you I don't want to phrase it. What do you think? Is there any difference in the thoughts that you have now about this album as opposed to when it came out in 99?
I just listened to the song with Busta Rhymes less, but other than that, no, my feelings still remain the same. incredible album. Incredible album.
Yeah, same.
Just like you alluded to, he wasn't afraid to just branch out and take risks and just like go outside of the standard structure. It was something that Chuck D said in an interview a while back, just dealing with like the standard structure in rap songs. And he always said, why does everything have to be 16 bars? Like, why can't it be a hot 17 bars, or why can't it be a hot 13 and a half bars? And that always stood out to me. When he said that, I'm like, man, it's like he's just coloring outside the lines whenever he feels like doing it. And it doesn't feel forced. It feels organic and it's dope.
And I think that's the key. You said it doesn't feel forced. I think if it were forced, as a fan, as particularly a fan of his and a fan of music, you'd see it and feel it and hear it, but you don't. So yeah, it's an incredible piece of work. Before I get you out of here, man, I gotta ask, because we always do this anytime we talk about music. It got 4.5 mics in the Source. So Danny Foxworth.
Yes, sir.
If you're handing out the mics, how many mics is Black on Both Sides going to get from you?
Man, I'd give it 4.5 too. Just off the strength of the Busta Rhymes song.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta agree.
If I omit that, it gets 5 for me.
I gotta agree. I think if you take the Climb song off, for me, yeah, it's really touching. If you take Climb off, even though I don't have a problem with May December, most people probably would take it off, but I think you keep that on, and it's still it's 4.5 mics, and I think it's a very solid 4.5 mics. This album, the one thing amongst other things that I love about this album is that, and I'm pretty sure you do the same, I can listen to it doing just about anything.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if I'm in the car. It doesn't matter if I'm cleaning the house. You can just throw it on, and you're gonna vibe, man. And it doesn't feel old, doesn't feel dated.
Nope.
His subject matter, as we can tell, has not changed, and his subject matter really has stood the test of time as far as we're concerned.
Yeah.
And even listening to it, man, I wish that there were more albums like this, particularly at that particular time in 1999.
I agree. I could not agree more, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So Black on Both Sides, man. But before we get out of here, Danny, man, tell folks where they can find you. Tell them where they can find you on social media. Tell them where they can find you and find the podcast as well.
Man, appreciate the floor. You can find me on Instagram at Danny Foxworth 843. You can find me on Twitter at Foxworth Danny. And I do a baseball podcast called At the Plate with Danny Foxworth, where I just basically talk to people about their favorite baseball team. And then I have another podcast called Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth, where it's more general discussion. Like, I'll talk about what I'm going through, or I'll have guests on to highlight their talents. Sometimes we'll do like tournament themed episodes. I did one for snack chips. I recently did a tournament for French fries. It's just a cornucopia of subject matter. And you can find all of those on all streaming platforms. You can find the video on YouTube. If you go to my channel, Danny Fox, which is also Danny Foxworth 843, and subscribe to that channel. That'd be greatly appreciated. And Kyle, thank you for having me on.
Man, I told you when you had me on yours, I'd have you back on mine. And trust me, this won't be the last time you're on here, man, because we vibe like that. And Danny's been listening for a long time, so I definitely appreciate you for doing that.
Shout out the Shoe Show episode.
I think that was the first episode you heard, or at least that's the first.
Yep.
Because you tweeted me and you was like, man, you from Florence? I was like, yeah. And you was like, man, I heard this episode about the Shoe Show, and I was like, oh snap! So we laughed about that, and it just kind of took off from there. Yeah, man, definitely check it out. You don't have to be a baseball fan to listen to At the Plate, but I think if you are a baseball fan, or if you have memories of baseball growing up. Because I think even listening to his podcast, sometimes I hear people on there and they talk about, just I remember Danny mentioned something about I think it was inside baseball, Major League Baseball, inside baseball or something like that. It's the show that used to come on Saturdays.
This Week in Baseball.
This Week in I knew it. I was gonna forget the name. This Week in Baseball.
Yeah.
With was it Mel Allen?
Yep,
Mel Allen. And so you don't have to necessarily be a baseball fan to listen to that podcast, but Danny, like you said, in both podcasts, man, this brother gives it up. Very cool, very laid back episodes, much like what you heard on here. You guys have been listening to this podcast, so I assume that you know where to go. But if not, 12 Kyle podcast drops every Thursday at midnight. From time to time, we drop bonus episodes on Sundays at midnight. If you want to follow me, it's 12 Kyle across the board, 12 Kyle podcast on all socials. If you feel so inclined, hit us up on Cash App, $TWELVEKYLE. That's going to do it for us. Again, celebrating Hip Hop Week, hip hop turning 50. We were talking about Black on Both Sides by the mighty Mos Def. For my man Danny Foxworth. I am your boy 12 Kyle, and we'll catch you guys next time. 5,000.